joining us now. A Concordia alum, a real Michigan man, did his GA years on a John B. line at the University of Michigan, and now is an assistant coach at Ohio University. Our good buddy Kyle Barlow, the coach. Coach Barlow, my friend, how are you? How's life? How are things this morning? Game day for your Bobcats today.
Game day for the Bobcats. Feels good to be at home. We were at home against Central Michigan on Saturday, and then now we got Western Michigan today. So we're doing our tour of Michigan, and then we're at Eastern Michigan next Tuesday. So we got the 3 Michigan schools and 4 games.
I love that for us. And, big win back there. He's excited. He's like, I love directional schools. We can hear him. That's great. We love it. Rise and shine, kiddo. You mentioned Eastern. I know your game's against Western, as you just mentioned. Eastern Michigan travels to Toledo tonight. So it'll be I get to finally see LeBron James 2.0 and Imani Bates this evening, and the 4 and God knows what Eastern Michigan Eagles.
4-15, yeah, not quite the year I think they expected, especially after the very good game at Little Caesars Arena against Michigan. A highly entertaining game, and reading the articles, I think their AD was saying, this is the year that we take the tarps off, right, up at the George Gervin court at the Convocation Center, whatever they're calling it now, and just for whatever reason, man, and this is not an indictment on Eastern Michigan or saying much about Eastern, but this is just a broad thought in general. Reading, actually, it's very relevant, reading an article about the Ohio State women's basketball team, who actually suffered their first loss last night, but were 19-0 going into last night. And their coach said something very interesting. He said, we're at Ohio State, and we got a lot of 5-stars, but that didn't ultimately mean success, especially in the NCAA tournament. He's like, we could never really get past the second round, Sweet 16, and assembling all this talent. So he's like, my staff and I sat down. He's like, we're not getting out talented, but for some reason, we're not the better team, especially here at the end of the year. So what they did is they started doing similar to what Matt Painter did, is really taking character assessments of kids and building a team and building a roster of girls and guys who are going to fit into a role. And you've got to have some studs, right? We all know that. You got to have some really good guards. You have to have good guard plays. But you also have to have people who are going to play in a role and really embellish that and embrace that role, and in order to have the best team at the end of the year. And, you look at Kentucky for all those years of assembling talent, right?
Oh, yeah. And
they got one championship to show, because Anthony Davis was the best two-way player in the game as a freshman. But they've had a lot of they had, DeMarcus Cousins, John Wall on the same team. The list goes on and on for them. So it's really interesting. It's like a case study we could do, right, on building a team rather than assembling talent, which is what you see in the NBA all the time too, right?
Yeah, you have to have the role players. And I heard Austin Rivers talking about this recently, where he was talking about high school players and a mixtape and the fact that everybody's got highlight tapes now. And his point is that in high school you had to be really, really good to get a basketball quote unquote mixtape or highlight reel, as they used to be called. But now they're mixtapes because mixtapes were popular when we were in college and everybody had to download it. So you said, "Damn son, where'd you find this?" For 15 times throughout the song when you gave your computer COVID 35 by downloading on LimeWire. So we all know, we've all been there. We all did that. A computer has a virus. Yeah, it's gonna die.
By downloading Nelly and Kelly Dilemma. I mean that one. I mean that was on every mixtape back when we were in high school and college, right? And you're right. You got COVID 35 from that thing.
Real trap bleep. Anyways, so DJ 31 degrees. We didn't know we were going this direction. But you have this idea where, and Austin Rivers was talking about, being able to make the hockey assist. It's the pass that led to the pass, right? And he's like, I tried to go out there. I didn't go out there because, I was trying to play really hard because there was a scout in attendance. I was trying to play really hard because we were trying to win. And if you're making winning plays, then things are going to show up, right? You're going to be recruited. And it does feel like we have found ourselves in a really strange place where we have kind of identified all of these star prospects that we want, 4 stars and 5 stars and this star and that star. But at the end of the day, you have to have the roster construction and the makeup of a team of guys that are willing to hey, I'm the 4 or the 5 man. I'm going to bang down low. I'm going to get the rebounds. I'm going to throw great outlet passes. I'm going to be that guard that's going to defend on the perimeter that might only get a couple of shots a game, right? We focus so much on the box score, and it's like, I deal in this conversation with this group chat of Amani Bates' fan club, and it's like, dude, you could score 30. Your team has 4 wins. Like, I'm not impressed with that, and GMs aren't impressed with that either.
Well, and someone good to look at that, Horizon basketball fans may be familiar with is a guy who was at Cleveland State the past couple of years. His name's Trey Gomillion, and he's about 6'4", doesn't shoot the ball very well. He's not the, most athletic guy. He just does everything. He's the glue guy. He keeps it all together. And, sometimes I think that word gets overblown, right, or oversaid. Hey, he's the glue guy. Oh, that just means he's not very good when you're doing a scouting report. But guys like Trey Gomillion, he went with Dennis Gates when Dennis Gates got the job at Missouri. And even myself, I found myself, we played him for 2 years in a row, and I'm thinking, that's not an SEC player right there. But I get it. You try to set your culture. Maybe he gets in for 2 minutes a half and, is really the guy, the heart and soul of that team like he was at Cleveland State. Well, he's starting and playing 30 minutes. And he's playing for a really good team in Missouri, a top half of the conference team in Missouri, a surprise team in Missouri. And I'm watching their game, and he's doing the exact same thing at Missouri that he did at Cleveland State. And it's not scoring 20 points a game. It's really not. It's doing everything else and the stuff that doesn't show up on the box score. And teams need that. That's a valuable part of a team. And you look at the Warriors, like, and I go back, it's the guy you love, one of your all-time favorite NBA players, but Draymond Green had one of the best quotes that said, your three-point shooting is hurting this team. He said, how's it hurting this team? They said, well, you're open. He's like, okay, let me get this straight. If I'm wide open for 3, I could either take that shot. I'm a career low 30 three-point shooter. Call it what it is, mid. He's like, or I could try and set up 2 of the best three-point shooters in the history of the game to get their shot off. So it's like that kind of mentality is something that a championship team needs. And, we're going off on this tangent, but I think it's really important when you watch games and you watch players. Oh, he stinks. He averages 2 points a game. Well, why is he playing 30 minutes? Coaches aren't dumb.
Yeah, no, I mean, old triple single. There you go. You had to go that direction, didn't you? To shot 27% from the long line. Yeah, don't give me that. You know what? It's not. It's something about the how holy art thou that really gets me, right? Yeah. That's what it is. Like, look, I'm so much smarter than everybody. I do this, that. It's like, dude, if you got drafted by the Kings, you're not seeing a second contract. I'm sorry. I understand the glue guy point, though.
Jealousy.
It's not jealousy. He's imperative to the Warriors' success. There you go. Is everybody happy now? You glad? You got me all fired up now. Now I'm aggravated.
He found a way to stick.
He found a way to stick.
Yes.
Yes.
Whatever way possible. And it's like, look, he became a multi-millionaire because he had the humility. Now, I get it. I get what you're saying, and I agree with some of that stuff that you always say about him. But it's like you have the humility to say, look, I got Steph and Clay. I got to get these guys shots. I got to find a way to be on the floor with them.
I got to punch a teammate.
Hey, man, do whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. He was with Taylor Rooks. Taylor Rooks went live on, I don't know, whatever. So I immediately clicked it. Well, what are we doing? I got to check this out. Our girl Taylor. But now I'm all distracted. But he was talking about the punch, and he wanted to know, like, how did that video go out? He's like, when have you ever seen a video from practice surface?
Yeah.
He's like, who put that out there? He's like, I'll never know, but I'd like to know. And I was like, wow, shocking drama here. From inside the Warriors, they derailed the entire season. They can't win on the road.
Do you find that that's a way to deflect too, instead of taking responsibility? I mean, I know he's taking responsibility, but it's like, look, can we just stop talking about how to get out there? And like, look, I shouldn't have done it. Let's move on. I mean, that's one of the things I know that annoys you about him. And my point about him finding a role and being imperative to that championship team, it goes beyond, especially in the NBA, because now you got role players who find a role and are want max contracts. So, which defeats the purpose of a role player, I guess, when it's all said and done, because now the salary cap's all jacked up, right? But I digress. I get it. My whole point with the whole conversation is like, you have to build a team. You can't just assemble a roster. And I think the smartest GMs in all 4 major sports leagues know that. I think the smartest college coaches know that. I mean, look at Villanova won 2 national championships. And we remember the one team with when Michigan played them, and their probably most talented player was coming off the bench. He scored 30 off the bench with Dante DiVincenzo, right? And I mean, you don't see all those Villanova guys being NBA All-Stars, do you?
The best line about Dante DiVincenzo is, and I don't think that people realize how his name was actually spelt, because that's it makes sense with his last name of DiVincenzo and the part of the world that his family comes from. But the running joke was he's got a lot more Dante in him than he does DiVincenzo. That's like, you got to laugh, because if you don't laugh, you cry. That guy, damn him. Like, I mean, I'd love to have him on the show. Yeah, I mean, I respect his game. But that was brutal. I mean, comes off the bench and gives you a 30-piece extra crispy side of fries.
Extra crispy.
Large drink. Like, ugh.
Are you allowed to make that joke just because of your Italian descent?
Absolutely.
like the episode of Seinfeld. You ever see the episode of Seinfeld when Jerry goes?
I don't watch Seinfeld.
Well, so Jerry goes to the confessional, and this guy converts to Judaism, one of his fellow comedians. And, just so he could do Jewish jokes and not, be canceled.
Easy, Myers Leonard.
So Jerry goes to a priest and, is doing a confessional, and he tells him the whole story, and the priest says, and that offends you as a Jew? He goes, no, that offends me as a comedian. So you can make that joke as an Italian-American descent. I get it.
Yeah, that's exactly how that's how I feel. Where's my pass? Let me get my card out and flash it out there. I do have to ask you this, because it was very bothersome last night to watch the way we talk about assembling a roster, trying to find the talent, trying to find the glue guys, trying to figure everything out. And I don't know if you watched it. I'm not asking if you watched it. I'm asking how did the Detroit Pistons fix this issue? Like, you're not coming out ready to play. You give up a 50-piece in the first quarter. Giannis had 20. I thought Budenholzer should have played him the whole game and let him go for 100. Like, you just go for it. You're 6 of 7 from the field. I know you're coming back from injury, whatever, load management. Dude, you got 20 points in the first quarter on 6 of 7 shooting. Let him go for it.
Yeah. I think just the articles I've read, I haven't watched a ton of Pistons lately, but the
Lucky
articles
for you.
I'm reading, yeah, I know, right? When they went over in France, they did a lot of exclusives with the Athletic. I don't know if you were able to catch up with those articles, but I really enjoyed. Troy Weaver did an article. Isaiah Livers did a daily journal article that they wrote about. So it was just very interesting to see and very telling. And it just seems like, with Cade being out, I think that was, that's obviously a huge thing. And then them just getting the roster right with injuries and guys rotating in and out, and they've had very little continuity this year. And then when you're talking about taking away, the guys, supposedly the guy is Cade Cunningham, you're going to have some growing pains, but I don't think any of us expected it to be to this extent. But if you look back, what did we expect? Especially if you would say that Cade Cunningham's not going to play basically the entire year. What would you expect out of this Pistons team? And I still feel like the players are very bought in and very optimistic. And you look at guys like Jalen Duren and Ivy. Like, all these guys, I think that they're high on, and, even Livers saying, like, look, there's 1 or 2 things a game that we can point to. Even if we lose by more than a couple possessions, there's 1 or 2 turning points per game and that we got to clean up. So I think that shows still buy-in, and, I think the defense is something that definitely has to be addressed. But, if you also look at it, you're basically playing with freshmen and sophomores out there. And as a college coach, your defense is not going to be very good with freshmen and sophomores. I can tell you that. It doesn't matter how talented you are, because they just don't know the way the game is played. And they're going to be, as John Beilein would always say, on a 1 to 2 second tape delay, especially on defense when you're a freshman. So. And it was true. You see it. It's like, instead of being you're reactionary, you're not actionary. And that's something that he always said. And, I think it's something you see right now with the Pistons, especially defensively.
Is Purdue the best team in the country?
Whew. Hard to say they're not. I'll tell you, if you look at their games, I know we talked about it last week, but they are winning. They are winning close games, and it's like that championship DNA is something that they have because you don't win all those close games with different guys hitting the game-winning shots between Fletcher Loyer, Zach Edey. You know, you have a freshman who is ranked number 144 in the country coming out of high school, and he's starting at their point guard. You know, so it's like you got all these little pieces and all this championship DNA because they're winning close games. So it's really hard to say they're not. You know, I think Houston, the way they play defense, is definitely up there. I mean, UConn kind of went on a slide in the grinder of the Big East, but there's some really good teams, and I think Purdue is definitely in that conversation.
Fletcher Loyer, my goodness. I mean, he's out there getting buckets. Getting buckets, 6'4", 185. I mean, that's I always kind of felt bad for Foster because there was always that hometown kid, hometown team. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot of pressure, and I'm glad that he eventually found a space where he could have some success. But that little brother of his is oof, that kid's ruthless.
Yep, little, but he's 3 inches taller, which definitely helps.
When playing Big Ten shooty hoops, no doubt about it. Michigan will play Purdue Thursday night, 9:00 tip-off. For those of you living in the Western time zone listening to us right now, you can watch that at 6, which is when it should be, but they want to punish us all, which is very bad. I'm not a fan of this. I want to write a letter.
Is that a home game? So it'll be 9:00 tip for you and Chrysler?
You know it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah. We're at 8:00, Michigan, Indiana women's hoops last night.
Woo-wee.
Because
you're putting them through it, man. They're putting you through it.
Because they had to get the Wisconsin Northwestern game rescheduled. They had to smash it in there. And I get it. Like, you know, they're trying to fit a game in the middle of the schedule. Don't make those guys play late at night because they got to travel. This was not supposed to be. But, you know, people were up in arms. They slid our game back to 8:15. It's like, yeah, we just got to deal with it. There's nothing you can do about it. We're not coal miners. Let's just get in here and get the job done and watch Indiana shoot a blazing 500% for the field. They did not miss the entire game. Yeah, it was intense. So, Ohio versus Western tonight, who wins?
Oh, man, you go into every game thinking you're going to win.
That's right.
You have to as a teammate, as a coach, right? So, you know, I think that, you know, it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Western's one of the better offensive teams in the league, led by some Michigan natives, West Michigan natives in Lamar Norman and Marquise Hastings. So some very good players from West Michigan that bounced around and ended up at Western Michigan. So under first-year head coach Dwayne Stevens, who was a long-time Tom Izzo assistant. So, you know, they're a very talented offensive team, putting up some big numbers. You saw them in Savage Arena a couple weeks ago, I believe you were on that game, and, you know, I think they had 75 or 80. The problem is Toledo had 100, which is something Toledo will do. So,
they didn't miss. Hey, they didn't miss. I mean, they came out. I was like, wow, that hoop looks like Lake Erie right now. My goodness. Yep. Will you drop a Go Blue in the handshake line to Dwayne Stevens? You don't have to answer that. He is the coach, Kyle Barlow. Find him on Twitter at KyleBarlow4. Send your children's mixtapes there. Thank you, Coach.
See ya.
There he goes. Always a pleasure. It's so interesting to get somebody who's actually entrenched. You know, I know you might be thinking Michigan Sports Network, Ohio bad. Like, what's the connection? The connection is somebody who's from Michigan who's entrenched in this. And it's always great to get that perspective.